This is The Full View. Welcome back. Now, the Pan-African Parliament will on Monday elect the president of this continental legislature. The Southern Caucus is currently facing a challenge as it is divided on who to present as a candidate in line with the principle of rotation. And to further unpack the role as well as the processes of the elections at the Pan-African Parliament, we have roped in former clerk of the PAP, Advocate Zwelethu Madasa, who is in studio with us. Advocate, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Look, let's talk about the causation of the current, divisions as we head to the PAP elections. What is actually the reason behind these divisions?
Yeah, thank you very much to have the opportunity to explain some of these problems as someone who has worked for the institution during a time that it was very stable. The root cause of the current political conflict is the fact that there is a rule in the Pan-African Parliament Constitution which says that members of the Bureau, let's focus now on the President. The President's membership of the Pan-African Parliament depends on whether he is a member of his own national parliaments. So once a national parliament where the President comes from is dissolved, he automatically loses his position as the president of the Pan-African Parliament. So that is the rule. So then the rule says once that vacancy occurs, it must be filled immediately in the next sitting of the Parliament. In other words, the president must be replaced by another member of Parliament once his Parliament is dissolved. So in this case, the immediate past president, Chief Charumbira from Zimbabwe, as you know, Zim went to elections in August, was it 2022? Yes. If I'm correct.
I think so,
2022. Yeah. So he was the president at that time. So his membership was going to be dissolved once the election started in Zimbabwe. So he knew that. So to make sure that his position was not filled by another person's, as the rules stipulate, he then, with his friends, came up with a plan to change the rules so that they freeze the position, his position, and so that then he comes back and fills his position. So he changed that aspect that he must be replaced. So once they changed the rules, a section of the members of Parliament then protested and then went to the headquarters to report that our rules have been changed and these people want to stay in power.
Were the members not consulted on the change of these rules, Advocate?
They were divided. Some supported, some did not support. The thing is, those rules, whether they were supported 100%, they cannot be changed because they change the fundamental provision of the Constitution of the Parliament. You can't change that by making rules because the Constitution is the treaty of member states. Only the assembly of all member states can change the rules. So then they were reported. Then the headquarters of the AU intervened. They sent a team to investigate whether these rules have been changed, and if they have been changed, they've been changed correctly. So that investigation was done. It went to PAP, I think, around December last year. And then the task force reported back this year in January to the headquarters. And then the chairperson of the African Union Commission took that report to the ministers when there was an AU summit in February this year. So the ministers of foreign affairs of all member states have the authority over the PAP. So they met, they looked at the report, they accepted, the report was adopted, that those rules of PAP to freeze those positions and to prevent the replacement of the president were not correct. So that was a decision. So then the ministers gave a directive that the PAP must have an extraordinary meeting to fill those vacancies the way they should have been filled last year.
But Advocate, I mean, if a lot of people are not agreeing with the processes that you've just outlined in terms of how the elections are actually conducted, why don't then relook at the election process or maybe come up with a completely new blueprint or policy that aligns with the current outputs as well as requirements of the body?
As I say, this is a treaty of member states. There are very good reasons why these rules remain like this. remember...
But time changes, Advocate.
No, let me explain. You have about 55 member states. They have different constitutions. So what happens when parliaments go to election? Others come, others go. Others come. You cannot keep a situation the same because the constitution of different member states operates differently. Others have got 5-year term, others more, and they change, they do election at different times. So there is a new protocol to answer your question.
Yes.
That this protocol has been revised. There's a new one which they must now all over the continent sign and ratify. It addresses the issue how the new protocol makes the PAP a full-time parliament where people will be elected for a full term of 5 years. Then once that happened, like all our national parliaments, we won't have problems because members are full-time. So coming back to this dispute, so now what has happened, the caucus of Southern Africa, the presidency is in the southern region. There is no problem about that.
Okay.
So now a section of the members of the caucus of Southern Africa are saying, no, Chief, you can't come back and replace yourself. You should have been replaced. And you froze the replacement by changing the rules. Now you are coming back, you want to replace yourself. You should have been replaced. Allow another person to replace in the way the rules were written.
But
so Chief says, I'm back, and I must be sworn in. What's wrong? I'm back now. So they are fighting about that. So what happened yesterday? There was a caucus. They did the nomination. Chief got, he won by 23 votes. The other candidate got 22. So just one vote. So now they are complaining that that process was not proper, and in any case, he shouldn't be a candidate, or he should have been replaced. All that kind of dispute. That's what's going on.
Even though the vote was done and a leader was elected, consensus was not necessarily reached. But all these squabbles, Advocate, will it not then lead to people losing confidence in the PAP altogether and call for the disbandment or just ignore the body since it cannot resolve its own internal conflicts? And maybe let's also talk about, because in the interest of time, I want to talk about, as the host member state this time, how do we then bring about stability within the organization?
No, it's an important question. Just to say to you, on Monday, then the president must be elected by all members. This was just a nomination. And then Monday, he must get simple majority, 50% plus one of all members.
Okay.
Then he become president. Just to close that part. Now coming to the most important question you're asking. We are the host of this Pan-African Parliament as South Africa. We have responsibilities. This parliament started on a very high note. I mean, I was there as an observer exactly, actually 19 years ago. This
and high expectation as well,
was launched in Addis. High expectation. You know our South African delegation, it was a speaker, former speaker, the late Chinwala, the deputy speaker then, Balega Mbete. There was a chairperson of the NCOP. And listen to this, the leaders of opposition were there. National Party leader, a DP leader at that time, Colin Eklund. This was how high level was. So there was a unity of South African political parties to support the parliament. So what has happened over time, there's been a decline of the caliber of members. And the institution that has a responsibility for that, because the parliament is reflective of the caliber of MPs that are sent there by national parliaments. That's what it is. It's a melting point.
Yes,
but
basically
it depends
representatives,
the quality of leaders you send there, that's what you will have. So our parliament, fortunately now we're going to elections. Once it's dissolved, we need then to set a criteria. Who are the people who can represent South Africa? And what do we want from them? What caliber of people? Conduct, personal conduct, all these things. Politics, do they understand the objectives of this parliament? Once you have that quality of people, and then we put supervisory mechanisms. And this must be done across by other parliaments.
Absolutely.
But we must set example. Then we will have, again, the parliament coming up in terms of its status.
Advocate, thank you so much
thank you
for
very much,
your time.
yes.
Let's hope they've heeded that call and actually are going to work on some of those internal divisions there. Advocate Zwelethu Madasa there, the former clerk of the Pan-African Parliament.